The road always seems like an invitation to the unknown. It just takes accepting the wrong ride to discover how much a single night can change everything. Anyone who has spent hours in the isolation of the countryside knows. Some regions hold secrets that not even time can bury. If you've ever felt uneasy sleeping away from home or witnessed something inexplicable in the loneliness of the night, share your experience below and subscribe. Because when true fear arrives, a few words are enough to change your very faith. George, a seasoned trucker, was used to crossing highways with little more than his own courage. But on that trip to Pittsburgh, it was his daughter, Mary, who was settling into the truck seat, using the pretext of adventure to escape boring days at school. The job at that stop was simple: to watch the quarry at night, protect the machines, and wait through the dragging hours until dawn. The plan was just another trip, but what happened there would haunt them forever. The place had something oppressive about it: large craters, motionless machines, red dust clinging to the air. Mary, settled in an improvised trailer next to her father's truck, saw the nights growing like a living animal. The silence was only broken by the buzzing of insects and, now and then, by the distant echo of the wind sweeping through the quarry. George, carefree, said that nothing could happen there. Mary tried to believe him, but each night she felt more the weight of isolation, and especially the discomfort of the inexplicable. The first night brought strange sounds: scratches on the metal of the trailer, light at first, then stronger, interspersed with sighs that no one could justify. Mary curled up under the covers, repeating to herself that it was all just her imagination, but the fear wouldn't subside. At dawn on the third day, Mary told her father what she had felt. George, always a skeptic, just laughed and made a boast. "If the devil shows up here, I'll tell him to convert." The joke broke the mood, but left his daughter even more unsettled. That night would be different. After the sky turned absolute black and everything around them plunged into a cemetery-like silence, Mary noticed the difference in the air. The cold was unreal, and the feeling of being watched was more chilling than her father's words. When she tried to sleep, she was pulled into a waking nightmare. An apparition, bald, with dark skin and an empty gaze, dressed in white rags, invaded the trailer, grabbed her foot, and began to violently spin her around on the bed. The terror was so great that Mary fainted, unable to scream for help. Meanwhile, George was sleeping in the truck, protected only by the accumulated fatigue of his trips. At 3:30 a.m., he woke up abruptly to the shrill sound of one of the machine alarms. He grabbed his flashlight and went out, resigned to fulfilling the role of watchman even without wanting to. He could hardly have predicted that what he was about to find would forever change the way he saw the world, and how he ironically played with danger. There, among the piles of sand and the shadows cast by the machines, they were. 3 demonic figures with grotesque shapes, faces distorted into masks of pure scorn. George froze. 3 pairs of eyes drenched in hatred stared at him, and he could only run back to the truck, slamming the doors, trembling, fueled by an ancestral fear he had never experienced. Locked inside, he tried to control the panic. The creatures surrounded him, poking at the windows, hitting the metal body. And then the voices came, mocking, strange, speaking his own words from hours ago. "Didn't you joke about telling us to convert? Why are you scared now?" The terror only increased. With every glance, George saw the monstrous faces pressed against the glass, sadistic, threatening. The only refuge was his faith, or the memory of it. George screamed, initially stumbling over his words, but soon finding strength where he never thought he would need to look. "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus! All evil, get out of here!" The prayer, repeated like a mantra, went through the truck cab, and slowly, with each plea, the external voices faded. When he finally gathered the courage to look again, there was nothing left outside. Without thinking, George started the engine, without even checking if the entities were still roaming, and drove the truck to the trailer, where he found Mary awake, curled up and crying. She could barely speak, but her eyes pleaded for protection and escape. They packed everything in minutes and left the quarry behind before dawn. The drive back was silent, marked only by the sound of the wheels on the asphalt and the shared fear. The quarry, immense and indifferent, was left behind, but nothing there was as threatening as the feeling that something invisible was accompanying them every mile to the exit. Since that night, George never again made boasts about the devil, never joked about forces he didn't truly believe in. The experience cemented in him the kind of respect that only genuine fear can impose. He changed professions, got rid of night shifts, and cultivated a reverent silence about what he saw. Mary, for months, had difficulty sleeping. She would beg her father to close all the windows, and she forbade any mention of that trip. The simple smell of dust or the sound of a distant machine was enough to trigger distressing memories. Over time, the story became a taboo between the two of them, only confided in isolated conversations. Only those who lived it understood the weight of that night. George, a practical man, began to pray before every trip. Mary sought comfort in friends and later in therapy, but she could never describe the exact terror she faced without crying. The trauma, however, served as a warning. They learned never to underestimate invisible boundaries and, above all, to respect what is beyond comprehension. The joke about the devil converting sounded afterwards like an invitation that should never have been made. George and Mary chose silence, but the news of what they experienced at the quarry reached other truckers. Some colleagues began to avoid the route, and stories about shadowy figures, voices in the stone, and mysterious attacks fueled local legends. Even permanent workers at the site changed shifts or quit their jobs. Fear became a wall, protecting, in a twisted way, those who still look at the unknown with respect. The section of the quarry was never the same again for those who heard the accounts of that father and daughter. And every time someone jokes about the supernatural, George just watches in silence, because now he knows, from personal experience, that certain jokes have a price. Some lessons cost too much. When terror crosses the boundary of the real, the only way out is respect for what is unseen, and the certainty that no boast protects you from what lurks in the shadows. If you know a story as strange as this one, leave your account in the comments, subscribe, and share. Only those who listen to the invisible know that faith at certain moments is the last shield.